Hello, welcome to another episode of Paddlers Are You Ready? This is Shou again. Nice to see you guys. So yeah, hopefully you guys are liking these shorter videos. And so today we're going to do another one, and it's just me again in my car. So today we're going to talk about the other Daniel Coyle book that I mentioned in the other video called The Talent Code. And so the Talent Code is about why do certain people develop these amazing talents, and why is it only certain people, right? So for example, why is Brazil so good at soccer? Why is Canada so good at hockey? Why is Korea so good in golf, right? So why are these locations such a hub for these talents? And also in time, so why is it that in the Renaissance art was such a big thing? Why are they so good at art during that time? So this book kind of follows different people that build certain talents. So for example, why looking at like the best musician schools, looking at the best basketball teams. And so he kind of like takes all these kind of findings and puts it into one book about how do people get better at what they do. And so one of the ideas that I took away from the book was the idea that learning should always look like a baby trying to learn how to walk for the first time. As in, the baby should walk maybe a couple of steps, fall down, and then get back up and have to walk a couple more steps and fall back down. And so if we understand learning, then learning should always look like that. So one of the examples that he gives was this thing called deliberate practice that he saw a lot in the musicians that he was trying to study. And so what the musicians would do would be they would play a really tiny part of the whole piece, mess up, go back, try it again. Play the same thing, just that one little tiny piece, mess up, go back, try again. And so that's what deliberate practice is. It's all like a stumbling baby trying to learn how to walk for the first time. And so what that brings me to think about is how often as coaches are we getting our paddlers to practice one tiny piece of the stroke, mess up, do it better again. How often are we getting paddlers to think about their practice deliberately? And so this also brings us back to, or brings us to this other idea that I've gotten from this really famous CrossFit coach named Ben Bergeron. So Ben Bergeron does this podcast called Chasing Excellence. And in there, he talks about the idea of practice versus training versus testing. And so let's just break those three ideas down. Practice is exactly what we just talked about, deliberate practice. So if we're talking about, say, a CrossFit movement like rope climbs, deliberate practice would literally be you sitting on a box next to the rope, you pulling yourself up to the rope, up to standing, sitting back down. Get back up, pull the rope, sit back down. And it's unsexy. It's not what anyone wants to do. But if you want to get better at rope climb, you better be doing something like that. So tying back to a dragon boat sense, it would be putting your blade in, seeing if it has cavitation, pulling it back out. Not even taking that stroke. Putting your paddle in, take it back out. Put it back in, take it back out. It's not sexy. It's not what anybody wants to do, but it's how we can get our entry to be better. Then there's your training. Training is, I would generally for myself kind of categorize it as 80% body, 20% in the mind. So you are training as in you are putting in a lot of work, but at the same time, you're really thinking about what you're doing. So you're going about maybe somewhere between 65% intensity to maybe 85% intensity. So training is not going all out. If you are training correctly, at the end of the training piece, you should be feeling stretched and you should be feeling energized to train again the next day. You shouldn't be so beat that you cannot train the next day. Training is something you're going to do for a long time. Then finally comes your testing. Testing is going all out, 100%, all in your body. If you screw up your technique, you screw up your timing, but your score is better, then you've passed, you've done well on the test. The test is, I don't care how you get there, I only care about performance. So there's practice, training, and testing. So Ben Bergeron in his podcast talks about, what's most helpful in terms of moving the needle. And when he says moving the needle, it means making improvements. So if we talk about practice, training, and testing, which one of these gives us the most amount of improvement? Well, let's talk about what doesn't give you any improvement, and that's testing. When you are testing, you don't care about form. You don't care about anything else other than the improvement or other than the performance. So if you do nothing but testing, your technique will probably go worse. Your endurance will probably go worse because you're only testing in that one frame, that test. And so if you only test, you're actually not going to get better. In fact, you are likely to get worse. So that leaves us with the other two. You have practice and you have training. And actually, both of those are important in terms of moving the needle and getting that improvement. And so, on Ben Bergeron's athletes, he tries to get them to test maybe 10% of the time, which means that he is trying to get them to go in the 90 to 100% effort only about 10% of the time. Most of his workouts, and these are world class athletes, most of his workouts, he does not even ask them to keep score. He just tells them to train and just enjoy the training for what it is. And so, but he says that most of us are always testing. Now, what does he mean by that? What he means is if I'm at the gym working out with my buddy, I'm trying to beat him. I'm trying to compete with him and I'm trying to test to see where my capabilities are. Whereas I shouldn't be going all out and trying to beat my friend. I should really be going like maybe 85% most days and just training for my own benefits. And so what he says is most people are testing all the time and not training enough. You are not going 85% of effort enough. And what's worse is that pretty much nobody practices. You're only practicing when you first learn the skill, but you are not spending enough time to actually practice to become a master at that skill. So when you look at a seasoned paddler, how many times have you seen this person drop their shoulder, put the blade in the water, pull it back out? How often are you seeing this person slowly moving the hip through the range of motion to see what muscles is he engaging or she is engaging? Now, of course, if this person does that, that's how this person is going to master that craft, right? So on our team, we try to practice maybe about 30% of the time. About a third of the time of practices, we are trying to get paddlers to practice deliberately. And then somewhere between 50 to 75% of the time, or 50 to 70% of the time, we're trying to get paddlers to train. And so training is not going all out. It's working hard. It's paddling for a certain goal. I'm trying to practice. I'm trying to train for distance. I'm trying to train for sprints. I'm trying to train for a certain thing, and I have to put in these miles today. I have to do these number of practices or these number of minutes and these number of miles today. Right. So we get our paddlers to go anywhere from like 50% of the time to 70% of the time they're training. So majority of practice is training. And then testing, we're not quite as good as Ben Bergeron in terms of only testing about 10% of the time, but we try. We really try to make sure that our paddlers understand that testing will only get you worse. Now, it's important that you know where you are, so we do want to test, but that you need to know the point of the test. The point of the test is to understand where you are to inform your training, but really the only test that you should be taking is on race day, is on competition day. And so any other test that you're taking might actually be detracting, might actually be giving you less time to do what you really should be doing, which is practicing and training. So these are just kind of ideas that I've kind of learned from the books that I'm reading. So again, to recap, that's the Talent Code, talks about how musicians train and how musicians learn, how a baby learns, and then kind of tying that to how we learn in terms of practicing our stroke. So we call that deliberate practice. And then we also have Ben Bergeron's podcast called Chasing Excellence, and he talks about this idea of practice versus training versus testing. And so these are just ideas that I've learned, and it might jive with how you guys train. It might be giving you new ideas. It might be going against your training philosophy. I would love to hear what you guys think about these things that I've just kind of come across and that I think are useful tools. Comment below what you guys do to train, what do you guys do to practice, what do you guys do to test. Do you guys test too much? Do you guys not test enough? Do you guys train enough? Do you guys practice enough? I would love to hear how the rest of the community is training. If you have some best practices in terms of how you structure your practice, let us know down below. Make a comment. If you liked it, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, and go and share the video with other people in the community. We really appreciate you watching our videos and engaging with us. And so we're hoping to really start a conversation in the community and share these ideas. So yeah, thank you, and we'll see you next time. Peace.